You know, I have to give Kevin Stefanski a lot of credit. It couldn't have been easy, and it was probably long overdue, but he finally decided to make the switch at quarterback from Joe Flacco, the longtime veteran and Super Bowl champion who helped the Browns make the playoffs in 2023, to the rookie, Dylan Gabriel. It couldn't have been an easy switch, considering the circumstances, but it was one that had to be made. And seeing as he was coaching against the Vikings team that made the playoffs last season, and was coaching this team in unfamiliar territory, with the game being in London, which always throws a wrinkle into everything because of the time difference and the travel required, the fact that the Browns were winning this game was awfully impressive. With under 2 minutes to go, it genuinely looked like Stefanski's Browns were going to win their second game of the season, and it looked like the Browns were going to pull off the upset win. Now, how would they find a way to screw this up?
Right underneath where he was. Gain of 15, his sixth catch today, and now Jefferson able to make the catch, matched up with Denzel Ward.
All right, that's not good. That's really not good. However, if you're Kevin Stefanski, as in this man right here, as bad as this looks with the Vikings now in field goal range, you've still got all of your timeouts. You can make it so that the Vikings can't drain the clock, and make it so that you've got a shot to do something yourself later on. How you manage timeouts is one of the most important elements of being a head coach. And while there are some moments that are 50-50 in terms of what you should do, this is not one of them. In fact, this is an easy test where you call the timeout right away. So naturally, Kevin Stefanski decides to burn a timeout after the play. And
Browns call timeout.
I'm sorry, does that say 110? Does that say 110 left on the clock? But the catch by Justin Jefferson happened with 1:30 left. It happened 20 seconds before. Did you let 20 seconds run off the clock before taking a timeout? Did you seriously let that much time run off before calling time? Did you forget to stop the clock? Did your brain freeze? Were you watching the game on a delay? Were you jet lagged or something? Why would you not call a timeout right away?
One of these game-changing plays. Wentz, 2nd and 5. Addison, he's got it!
Yep, you've got no time left to do anything right now. Welcome to Dumb Decisions. Before I break down what happened here, this whole series is about taking an in-depth look at decisions made during games that were clearly awful from the start. This isn't something that looked bad in hindsight. Rather, this is something that looked awful almost immediately. These are moves where your gut instinct tells you right away that there is no way this could possibly work. And sure enough, your gut instinct was smarter than that of an NFL head coach. And for this one, we're going to take a look at the mind of Cleveland Browns head coach, Kevin Stefanski. You have to figure that Stefanski's time in Cleveland is coming to an end. There are very few coaches in football that can survive back-to-back extremely poor seasons, especially when you're in year 6. Dating back to the end of the 2023 season, the Browns have lost 20 of their last 24 games. When you're in year 6 as a head coach, you've got one winning record since 2021 and have won 17% of your games in the last year and a half. Your seat is going to be flaming, and the odds that you survive are relatively slim. And a lot of it has to do with some really poor coaching, especially with what we saw in London during this game against the Vikings. If and when the Browns fire Stefanski, I can't say it isn't deserved, considering these are the types of decisions that he's making. So with that being said, let's take a look at why calling a timeout with 1:10 left, up by 3, is a really bad idea. And I want to make something extremely clear. I saw a lot of people saying that calling a timeout in this spot in general was a bad idea, because it was helping out the Vikings and helping them get a touchdown. I don't agree with that at all. I actually think it was an extremely good concept by Stefanski. Once that big pass play happened and the Vikings were inside the 30-yard line with 90 seconds left and a timeout of their own, the clock was no longer an issue for them. They were never going to run out of time to be able to try a field goal or go for the touchdown. There is a finite end to the drive, especially since incomplete passes and anything that goes out of bounds stops the clock, and especially since they have a timeout themselves, there is no universe where the Vikings are going to run out of time and be unable to get the touchdown if they want it. The only way they don't get a touchdown is if the Vikings get stopped on third down. The Vikings are not going to run out of time to get a touchdown, if that makes sense. So I completely get the strategy by Stefanski, because I would have done the exact same thing. Call your timeouts so that you can get the ball back with a chance to win the game and have enough time to legitimately drive down the field. Because here's the thing. Time at this point for the Vikings, in terms of stopping the clock, if they can't score and you get the ball back, is irrelevant. The Vikings only have one timeout. And while they obviously have plenty of time to score themselves and get whatever they need, seeing as they're only 30 yards away from the end zone with 90 seconds left, if they don't score, the game is over. There's nothing that the Vikings can do to get the ball back. The Browns can just take a couple of kneel downs and the ball game is over. So when you're in that spot where the time is irrelevant in terms of winning the game if you get it on offense, but you're in a spot where the time is irrelevant in terms of getting a stop because there's plenty of time for the other team based on where they're positioned on the field to score and do what they need to do, it is smart to take the timeout. It really is. At that point, even though you're winning, the burden shifts to you as the winning team to call your timeouts, to maximize your chances of winning and getting an extra possession, because it's a no-risk, all-reward situation. So let's get that out of the way. Kevin Stefanski calling a timeout was not a dumb decision, which raises the question, why is this a dumb decision? Why am I making this episode and I'm not defending him? Because this timeout in particular was freaking stupid. What is the purpose to it? Seriously, what is the purpose of calling the timeout with 1:10 left? Justin Jefferson makes the grab with 1:30 left. You need to call the timeout right away. By not calling the timeout right away and wasting 20 seconds, you just shot yourself in the foot and you actually helped out the Vikings. A good rule of thumb is that you should never call a timeout that benefits the opposing team. And man, this timeout absolutely benefited the Vikings. The Vikings still have plenty of time to operate their offense and not run out of time. But at the same time, you now have 20 seconds less to work with when you get the ball back. What's the purpose behind the timeout here and not 20 seconds before? Let's look at the pros and cons of calling the timeout at 1:30 versus 1:10. In both scenarios, the best case is that you get a stop and win the game. And the Vikings don't have the adequate number of timeouts or the adequate amount of time to get a stop and win the game after you get said stop. The worst case scenario is that you allow a touchdown or a field goal, and now you need to answer with a drive of your own. So if that happens, and it's very likely that it happens since they're inside the 30, would you rather have more time to work with or less time to work with? Would you rather have more chances to get into field goal range or reach the end zone, or fewer chances? You want more. Of course you want more. More plays means more chances, which means fewer yards per play needed, which means less you need to do on each play in order to accomplish your goal. Just going with what happened in real life, and obviously this isn't a segment on hindsight bias, because there was no way of knowing exactly how much time would be left, but just as a real life example to show you what I mean, the Vikings scored a touchdown with 25 seconds left. If you call the timeout when you were supposed to, and called it 20 seconds earlier, like any sane coach would do in that spot, there are 45 seconds left. That's 3 or 4 extra plays you have to work with. That's 3 or 4 extra plays you get in order to move the ball down the field. Let's say get the ball at the 30-yard line after a kickoff that takes 4 seconds off the clock. By calling the timeout way later than you were supposed to, you only had time for 3 plays. With an extra 20 seconds, you had time for double that. You had time for an extra 6, 7 plays. Heck, depending on how you do it, you probably have time for 8 plays. You can use the middle of the field if it's there, even without any timeouts. You can't do that with 25 seconds Though at 45, you can. Your average yards per play needed is somewhere around 10, versus what happens when you take the timeout way too late, when you need about 25 yards per play. It is genuinely kind of impressive how awful this timeout was, because at that point, it might have been better off not taking the timeout at all. Seriously, at that point, with 20 seconds left on the play clock, and the Vikings looking like they were going to use some tempo and going to the line quickly, a timeout is probably only going to save you an extra 4 or 5 seconds. At that point, just leave a timeout in your back pocket so you can use it on the offensive side if you need it, especially because you've got a rookie quarterback making his first start, and especially because there's an increased likelihood that he won't be as efficient running that 1-minute no-huddle offense, and there could be a negative play or something disastrous happening. What amazes me about what this man right here, Kevin Stefanski, did in this spot is that he picked quite literally the worst possible time to call a timeout. Either call the timeout right away with 1:30 left, or don't call the timeout at all and let the Vikings snap it right then and there. But to do that, to do a best of both worlds scenario and end up screwing yourself over, to let 20 seconds run off the clock and then call a timeout right as the Vikings are about to snap it, thereby saving no time whatsoever and costing you on the offensive side when you'll likely need it? Coaching malpractice right there. Coaching malpractice. No one asked Stefanski afterwards about why he did it for some reason. So I guess he'll have the entire plane ride across the pond to think about his horrible strategy and why it sucks so much. But if Stefanski ends up getting fired after the 2025 season is done, it's going to be moments like this that are the reason why. So what do we learn from all of this? Calling a timeout midway through the play clock usually serves no purpose. If your timeouts help out the other team and are being used in a way that actually increases the chances that the other team wins the game, then you should probably not take those timeouts. If you're trying to stop the clock to maximize the chance you have of doing something when you get the ball back, then you should probably call the timeout right away and not very late. Being hesitant and being indecisive are traits that make of a bad football coach and will usually lose you games. And if you've got a rookie quarterback in his first ever start and you're calling the game in such a way that his yards per play needs to be significantly higher because you're managing the clock that poorly, then you should not be in charge of the development of said rookie quarterback. Because when all these elements are in play, you can't exactly be surprised when this play backfires. Talk about a dumb decision. Check out our live streaming schedule for the next few days. We're live every single day on this channel, whether we're covering a sporting event or playing GeoGuessr or just taking your requests. So make sure you like and subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a single time that we go live and so that you can join this community. Also, thanks to all our members and our Patreon supporters who get exclusive perks like their name at the end of each video, members-only Q&A streams, and cool emojis to use on videos and during streams. See how you can join this community and become a member or a Patreon member by clicking the link in the description below.